Previously on Pretty Little Liars Original Sin.
Hi guys, it's
Lauren Daisy.
Welcome back to my channel. Apologies that this is so incredibly late. The new episode 6, literally comes out tomorrow as I'm filming this, and I feel like I've been so good with the consistent uploads, but I actually moved to a different city. So you're gonna see a whole new like filming background. There's still boxes everywhere. And I literally moved the day episode 5 came out, I think it was. And I didn't have the chance to watch it until yesterday. It's just been very, very hectic. But I, was able to stay away from spoilers and everything and was able to watch it yesterday. And so I've got some notes. They're not super like, I haven't had time to probably like sit down and theorize, but I do have some theories. I always have some theories, don't you worry. So as always, we will go through the episode first and like my kind of notes on the episode, and then we will get into theories and speculation and all that good stuff in the second half of this video. So this episode was called Friday the 13th, and that was kind of what this was based around, that it was Friday the 13th. They had a Friday the 13th like movie marathon happening in this episode, and like references to the movie and stuff, which I really loved. I've actually been rewatching the Friday the 13th movie series recently, so I was all for this. And we started with another spooky spaghetti video, like we have been for the past, I think like 3 episodes now. We've been starting with a spooky spaghetti video, and it's with like everyone, this like kind of cult sat around and like worshipping and praying to Bloody Rose. Immediately, you know me, I've been on the church is dodgy train since the beginning, so this was giving me very much that. And oh my gosh, I want to talk about my theories now, but I'm gonna leave it till the end. So then we cut to the girls trying to help Farron like sew up her wound, and I loved this scene. I thought it was so good. Like, it genuinely felt like how me and my girlfriends would handle something like this, like just getting a YouTube video up and just trying for the best and like hyping each other up. And when like Tabby was like, "You're doing amazing, sweetie," I just thought it was so funny. I thought it was really, really good. And then you had after that the more like emotional scene where they're talking to Farron, and she says that she thought she could, defeat Bloody Rose for them, but that she failed and she wasn't strong enough. And I found that scene really like heartbreaking, and I liked that, the girls kind of rallied around her and assured her that she didn't fail. She succeeded by, surviving Bloody Rose's test. Also, what I thought was interesting was, when they told Farron about Rose Waters, Farron was kind of like, okay, did she survive? And like Imogen was like, oh, it wasn't that far of a jump. So like I didn't assume that she died, because obviously PLL, no body and no crime, but I did think like that's obviously what the girls would have assumed, but apparently they don't. So she could be around, she could not be around. I do think that's not the end of her. Whether it'll be this season or next season, I do think we'll probably end up seeing her again. And obviously they told Farron about Dr. Sullivan, so they've officially kind of added her to their suspect list and think that she's, dodgy vibes. And all of them but Imogen decide not to go back to their therapy sessions, and even Mouse says like, oh, I don't think it was helping me anyway, which I thought was a shame, because I actually, like in the last episode or the first episode, I can't remember, I actually like praised the fact that they were all going to therapy and making progress, which was something that the other girls didn't really get to experience too much. So I think it's a shame that it kind of worked out this way, that Dr. Sullivan ended up, like lying to them, and that they've all now backed out of therapy and out of going, instead of like finding a new one or, something like that. Yeah, I did think that was a little bit of a shame. So then back at Noah's apartment, she's really upset, obviously, about what's happened, and her and Jen end up sleeping together. We also see like Imogen and Tabby talking about their kisses with like Johnny and Christian, which I thought was really cute. I always love their like one-on-one scenes because they just feel so like genuine best friends, and it's like sweet. It's another thing that I also really loved in the OG series was when we got to see like proper friendship moments. It kind of reminded me of that scene between Spencer and Arya, where she's like helping her choose clothes and they're just kind of like joking around and laughing and just being genuine like best friends. I like to see those scenes, like, you know, in amongst all the terror and stuff. I think it's nice to include those. So I thought that was really sweet as well. And then we cut to the next morning, and Noah and Jen are obviously in the same bed, and Sean like knocks on the door, or like comes in. I think he just comes in and is like, oh, I'm ready for a run. So Noah obviously like gets out of bed, like runs over, is trying to kind of hide that they stayed in the same place. And Jen comes out and Sean is so sweet to her. I thought it was really sad. I mean, I mentioned before, like Sean as a character, didn't make much of an impression on me. I do really like the actor that plays him, but yeah, as a character, he didn't make that much of an impression on me in the first season. I was like neither here nor there really with his pairing with Noah. But this season, it seems like they've made him really nice and really likable, only to kind of like fuck him over, which I thought was really sad. And Jen then like comes out, and yeah, he's really nice to her and really sweet to her, and she kind of, you know, makes this sort of subtle joke about not getting a lot of sleep. And which obviously upsets Noah, and Noah's like, right, we just need to go. So Tabby and Imogen ask Sydney, Tabby's mum, which again, where are the mums? I feel like the mums were such a huge part of this, and they've just kind of all been like written out after the first episode. Like Corey's going to law school, and the Mouse's mums are on a Disney cruise, and Noah's mum's in rehab. So I feel like Sydney's like kind of the only one left, and like even the dads, we're not. You know, Farron's dad we haven't seen. I mean, I don't think we didn't ever see Tabby's dad, but yeah, I feel like it's kind of wild that they were included so much in the beginning and then kind of just like phased out. I guess maybe to make way for the other characters like Johnny and Christian. You know, we had quite a few new members, so I wonder if the mums kind of then they kind of like had a bit of a swap around kind of thing. But she says that Dr. Sullivan was recommended to them by Deputy Maroon because she, you know, there's no one more experienced in adolescent trauma than her. And so while Noah and Sean are on their run, Noah actually starts crying, and you think maybe she's going to confess what she did with Jen, but she says, you know, I'm just sorry that I've been working so much and living with Jen, which I don't think we knew up until this point that Jen had actually been living there. I guess maybe since she got out of juvie, she's been living there. And you know, they haven't been spending that much time together. And he is really lovely and tells her that she doesn't have anything to apologize for and that he loves her. And yeah, it was just really sad because obviously we know what happened. And he's just, you know, believing in her and trusting in her. And we know it's kind of like misplaced. So at school, Farron tells the girls that her and Henry are kind of on the rocks. Babes, where have you been? It's been like that since season 1. And that maybe with her not doing dance anymore and like him being in this weird church, she's maybe just kind of outgrown him, which I really liked. I've said a load of times, like in Gossip Girl, when Nate and Blair, you know, Blair decided that he was just her high school boyfriend and she'd kind of outgrown him and it was time to move on. I really loved that, you know, portrayal of a breakup. And so to see it again in this, and that she was just, you know, finding herself and becoming her own person, and maybe that didn't include him anymore, but there was no animosity, was a kind of angle that I really liked. And Noah kind of starts rambling and is like, oh, maybe you just need to give him another chance and then maybe it'll work out and then everything will go back to normal. So it's obviously like she's kind of projecting, but she doesn't end up telling the girls anything about Jen or Sean or anything like that. And then Imogen goes for her session with Dr. Sullivan and ends up calling her out basically for not saying that she had treated Rose before. And Dr. Sullivan says, well, doctor-patient confidentiality, I can't tell you anything about her. But yes, I did treat her when she was at Radley before the Radley closed down. So in this timeline, I think Original Sin was set 5 years after the events of the Pretty Little Liars finale. We got 5 years there. Then we also had the last season also has a 1 year time jump, so that's 6 years. And then obviously the original time jump is about 5 years. So we're looking at about 11 years since the Radley shut down, because obviously it shut down in the time jump and then was turned into a hotel. So that's a long old time between obviously Rose being her patient and then her being the girl's like therapist. And obviously she isn't going to say anything because doctor-patient confidentiality, which we kind of already guessed. And so Imogen asked her where she was last night, because obviously she wants to know, are you bloody Rose? And she says that she was on Zoom treating some of her patients that she works with remotely. So Imogen was kind of like, okay, still on the suspect list. We then saw Greg and Farron have an arm wrestle, and she won, which of course she did. Babbage. But again, I don't know if it's just a friendship thing. I feel like they're maybe building to something with Greg and Farron. I literally felt it from like the first episode. But I think I'm still team Farron and Kelly out of the two pairings. Then at the Orpheum, Wes asks Tabby, why is there a bloody hand prop in the popcorn? What the hell's going on? And she says, oh, yeah, we did actually film a short film here. And I thought it was interesting that she didn't actually ask him. And he says, you really should have told me because there's liabilities and stuff. And then Christian says, oh, there's darkness to this guy. I don't trust him. And I think that's valid on some points because we know from season 1 that Wes is a bit creepy. But also and I think he is jealous. I'm going to talk more about that in theories and stuff. But just as a base, I do think that if you were a manager and your 16-year-old employees low-key broke in to your place of work and filmed a movie there and had all their friends in there and you'd probably want them to okay it with you first. That seems kind of reasonable to me, not gonna lie. Let me tell you something. Paige is back, okay? Paige is back in the spirit of Jen because she's doing the absolute most. And it's such a shame because I do really like the actress that plays her, and I've been waiting, and I wanted a sapphic relationship in this show. I literally said it last season, so I've been waiting for it. But this is just not doing it for me. Noah and Jen is just not doing it for me. She gives me Paige vibes. I feel she's kind of super attached to Noah already and kind of clingy and angry about Sean, even though Sean has been her boyfriend for 2 years. Yes, obviously Noah shouldn't have entertained this thing with Jen when she had a boyfriend, but also Jen knew going in that Sean was a thing. So I don't know. It's giving very much Paige, I can't lie. So speaking of, Sean's mum goes to see Noah at the pizza place and is basically like, why did my son give you $2,000? That's inappropriate. You need to pay him back. And Noah lies and says, oh, it was for my mom's rehab. But then obviously Sean's mum is like, well, you said your mum was out of rehab. So what the hell is going on? And basically just says, look, pay it back. Asking him to empty his bank account for you was inappropriate. And she needs, you got to pay him back basically. And so she leaves. And then Jen comes over, and you think maybe she's going to be like consoling, which she kind of is, but there's an agenda behind it because she's like, I just feel like what would really, that lady's unhinged. Like, you need to get away from her. And you know how you can get away from her? If you break up with Sean. Ma'am, now's not the time, I don't think, to be pushing Team Jen versus Team Sean. Noah's like, I'm not going to break up with Sean. And so Jen's like, well, what was last night then? And Noah's like, I don't know. I'm all confused. And Jen says that she will find the $2,000 to pay Sean back so that it can just kind of go back to how it was before all the money was involved. And so, okay, I think this one's tricky because do I think that Sean's mum should have yelled at Noah and like come to see her in her place of work? No, because at the end of the day, that is Sean's money and he can do whatever he wants with it. And also, I think there should be a level of privacy within their relationship as to what she needed that money for, or, whatever it may be. And I think the fact that she like tracks his bank accounts and stuff, I get it. Obviously, as a mum, you would be like, $2,000 is a lot of money, like to just give away, like what's going on here? But you would talk to Sean about it first instead of just going to Noah and confronting her and being really horrible to her. That I didn't agree with. However, I do have an issue with the whole money thing in general. I have an issue with the fact that she basically lied to Sean about why Jen needed it. Like, obviously it was for juvie, but she didn't mention that she was there or anything like that. And then, is lying to him about her relationship with Jen. He paid this $2,000 to get her out of jail, and the first thing that happened was that they kissed, which, no. So, yeah, I think Sean's mum was in the wrong, but I also think that Noah's in the wrong as well. Also, I'm kind of surprised that, like, this just seems to, like, be the spur that Jen needed to be like, I need to get Sean's money back. Like, I assumed she would be paying him back slowly anyway, but it doesn't seem like she is. So yeah, that was kind of a weird one. So yeah, her asking Noah to break up with Sean was wild. And like being upset that she won't break up with him. Again, yes, Noah is playing with her emotions unfairly, but obviously Noah is also confused about this whole thing. But like, I'm pretty sure Noah was only in juvie for like 3 months, like 3 months or 6 months. And at this point, that's now like a year ago, I think. So she hasn't seen Jen for like 9-10 months, had a fling with her in juvie for like 3 months, but has been dating Sean for like 2, almost 3 years. So like she hadn't even seen her in 9 months, and then they've just been like reconnecting and hooking up for the past 2 weeks. So for her to be like, how could you dare to not choose me over Sean is kind of wild. So then Imogen's dad comes to visit her and invites her to meet his fiance that she didn't know about, Rebecca. And it gave me very much like Tom and Hannah vibes from season 1, where he obviously invites her to dinner with Isabel. Then Noah invites Sean over and they end up having sex as well. And Henry apologizes to Farrah and he's like, Kelly told me that she mentioned that I talked about our relationship in the group, and he said he's sorry that she found out about it that way, but that it actually is, helpful for him to open up and talk to people. Now, where's? I feel like this scene was not surprising because he kind of had these elements like through season 1 as well. But he tells Tabby that, he thinks maybe they only called her to kind of fill their diversity quota because they had been called out on social media the past few years for their lack of diversity. And so she's like, are you insinuating that they only wanted me because I'm black and a woman? And he's like, yeah, low key. And Christian and Tabby just like, I cannot believe you actually just said that right now. That's crazy. And he says that it's harder for a straight white man these days, which is just beyond hilarious. And I loved Tabby's response that she said she was proud, to be a Black female director and to share her perspective, and that if he, wants to make it so badly, then he has to do what women and like POC creators have been doing for years, which is be undeniable. And I was just like, yes, bitch. I love it. I love Tabby so much. And she actually ends up challenging him to a film off. She's like, let's put your short film up against my short film and see which one wins. But he's like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. And then he's like, I'm not going to work the Friday the 13th marathon anymore. Which is crazy. Like, you absolute mad child. How unprofessional. You're the manager and you're just like, I'm just gonna let you teenagers handle this because you've upset my feelings. Noah then tells Sean about what happened with his mom, and he is pissed. He's a big pissed, and he's like, she should not talk to you like that. Like, don't worry, I'm gonna go and handle it. And then I tell you, I don't know what the hell is going on with Lola. Like, I feel like at first I was like, okay, bless her. She's obviously got something going on, and she dropped Mouse off at this place, but she said her friend called, so I was like, okay, we can kind of make sense of that. But now she's watching Spooky Spaghetti and like being indoctrinated into this like Bloody Rose like thing. It's so wild. And so Mouse catches her like watching it, and it's this like, I think it's a live stream or just a video of all these people who are in like the Bloody Rose like following, saying that the reckoning is coming, and that they all need to show their support for her. And in doing this, they slice their foreheads. Oh my god. I said it before, but I think this whole Spooky Spaghetti thing is so good. I think it is so like of the times of the internet, because like this is the kind of shit that 1000% happens. Like 1000% insane. So anyway, yeah, they're all like slicing their foreheads for Bloody Rose. It's mental. Then we see Imogen and Tabby, and they're like acting like a married couple. It's so cute. And they decide that they're going to break into Sullivan's office. Slay. Like the OG liars would be so proud. Meanwhile, Henry has actually invited Farron to go to one of these like Cairo sessions, I think they're called. And basically it's a session all about Farron, because Kelly stands up and says that Farron, she was bullied her because she was jealous of her, and that Farron actually helped her and kind of saved her from hurting herself, and she loves her for it, and now they're friends. And I thought that was so sweet, and it's going to do so good in edits when Kelly and Farron finally get together. Then Greg stood up and said that he has also, been giving Farron shit for a while, and he said something really interesting. He said that he, kind of makes it seem like her being like really muscly is, well, like really strong, it like makes her less attractive. And then he said like, as if that could be possible. Sir. Okay. And that he respects her. And then Henry stood up and said that he is sorry that he felt like he couldn't just talk to her about how he was feeling, and that he still wants to be together, even if, they aren't now dance partners as well. They can be together in whatever this new version of their relationship is. So yeah, there's so much to unpack in that scene, honestly. And then when Mrs. Beasley touched Farron on the shoulder, that gave me the heebie-jeebies right there. I was like, oh, don't you do that. Remove that hand right now. Then my OG PLL heart was screaming, crying, throwing up. So they're in Dr. Sullivan's office and they're like going through her files, and we see R.O. Montgomery's file, Hannah Maren's file, Spencer Hastings' file, and Emily Fields' file, right next to Imogen's. And so I'm gonna talk about that later, but keep that in mind. And yeah, they go through their files and realize that there's actually transcripts of their sessions, and that she has been recording them illegally. like under the table. She's been recording all of their sessions, writing everything down. And she also thinks that Imogen is on the verge of a psychotic break. So they show the other girls these files and they're like, well, you can't record us without our consent. Like in Pennsylvania, that's illegal. So they go and confront her and she says that she is working on a book. Ezra flashbacks, and that it's about adolescent survivors of trauma, and that she, you know, thinks their story could be really powerful in helping other women and other like young girls and survivors and things. And they're kind of like, what was your plan? Like, you didn't ask us. And she's like, well, I was just going to write the book and then get you to read it and then get your permission after. And they're all just kind of like, how dumb are you? Like, what? And they're basically like, you know, we will sue you. Stay away from all of us. And Imogen says, you know, I thought that you cared about me, but obviously not. And you need to stay away from me and stay away from all my friends. So then they decide they're still going to keep Dr. Sullivan on their suspect list. They're not sure if this makes her more or less likely to be Bloody Rose, but they're still kind of keeping her as a possibility. And Mouse says, look, there's this thing called the Reckoning. I don't know what it is. It seems like these people are going to come together to do something for Bloody Rose or help her or something. And so if you see anyone that has a slice in their forehead, don't engage. And she reveals that her grandmother did this. So Lola is a member of the Bloody Rose committee or whatever. So poor Mouse, bless her, has had to hide all the sharp objects in their house, has put like parental controls on all their laptops so that she can't access spooky spaghetti. I mean, like, she thinks she's not taking her meds, so I guess she already has meds for this. But it's kind of wild that Elodie, Mouse's mum, who was so insanely protective over her in season 1 and was very much like, you know, nothing can happen to my baby, like, left her with Lola, who has immediately put Mouse in more danger than we even saw her in the first season combined. So Sean tells Noah that she doesn't have to worry about his mum anymore because he's told his mum that he's moving out and that he wants to move in with her and therefore Jen. And like, is that okay? And Noah's just kind of like, yeah, so fine. It's not like I'm having an affair right under your nose, nothing like that. Baron says to Greg that she actually appreciated what he said at the session, and he's like, you know, I'm not really into all this, like, properly. I just go to these ones, but there's like a whole inner circle that I'm not a part of. And Farron's like, inner circle, you say? And he's like, yeah, Henry, Kelly, they're all like, go to these more in-depth, you know, channeling the Lord kind of sessions. And so Farron's like, I think I need to look into this a little bit more. Then we had a wild scene. So Imogen brings Johnny, who she's known for like a week, by the way. I think she should have brought Tabby to this dinner with her dad and Rebecca. And so we meet Rebecca, and it's kind of giving Isabel vibes. And Imogen, like, it's going okay-ish. Obviously, Imogen and her dad have a bit of a strained relationship, but it's going okay. Until Imogen realizes that Rebecca is wearing Davy's old engagement ring. And she gets really upset. And Imogen says, you know, it wasn't, and Rebecca says it wasn't Davy's ring, so tough shit, basically. And her dad says, you know, it was my mother's ring that I gave to Davy and she gave it back to me. So, and Imogen's mindset is that if, you know, if your wife kills, or ex-wife kills herself, leaving her daughter, like your daughter just all by herself, maybe you should give that ring to her. Which I think is valid. But I think we did get a little bit of an overreaction from Imogen when she threatened to literally cut the ring off of Rebecca's hand and pointed a knife at her. on the verge of a psychotic break. My girl, I love Imogen. I love her so much. She's like such a good character, and Bailey plays her so well. And I'm just like, girl, queen, what's happening here? And so she basically says to her dad to never speak to her again, that he was too coward to come to her funeral, and now he wants some kind of relationship with her. But it's not going to happen. And Johnny drives her home, and he says that his dad, is an asshole as well, so he understands, and he's surprisingly okay with all of this, which is kind of wild considering that they've kind of just met and she just threatened to stab somebody. And the last time you saw her, she was also holding a knife, but whatever. I'm hoping it's just because he's a nice guy, but I do still think he's Sullivan's son, which then makes me nervous that he's getting close to Imogen for intel for Dr. Sullivan's book, which would be really upsetting. But maybe, his feelings for Imogen will actually like grow and then he'll feel bad about it. Like how when we saw in season 1, Caleb was kind of getting close to Hannah because he was working for Jenna, but then he actually started to really like Hannah and felt bad, and they kind of moved past it. Maybe we'll get a similar scenario with Imogen, Johnny, and Dr. Sullivan. So Farron then sneaks into the church. Oh my gosh, Snoopers never like what they find, because she sees basically the scene that we watched in the beginning in Spooky Spaghetti, and it's all of them in this like circle, and they're like praying up to the sky, like, and like channeling whatever they're channeling. And she's like, no. So Henry runs after her, and she says, I don't know what I saw up there, but it was not good. And he's like, you weren't meant to see that. And she says, look, I'm just going to ask you straight up, will you walk away from this church for me? And he doesn't say anything, so she breaks up with him. Then we see Jen and Noah back at the apartment, and Jen gives her the $2,000 for Sean, which she just came up with in an afternoon. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And they're about to talk about where do we go from here when Noah notices a letter with roses and realizes it's time for her task. And it says that she's been walking the forbidden path for too long with, her 2 beloveds. And so if she doesn't complete her task, one of them will die. And so she is like freaking out, and she's like, Jen, you have to go, you have to leave. And she, Jen's like, are you picking Sean over me? And she's like, yes, I'm picking Sean, like, get out of here, basically. And it didn't mean anything when we had sex, like nothing, I need you to go. Also, which was incredibly harsh, okay? It was incredibly harsh, but obviously we know that's not how she really feels, but she just wants us to, like, protect her. But also I was kind of like, is Jen really surprised that she chose Sean? Like, do you really think you guys have that deep of a connection? I mean, I guess they are teenagers, so they probably do. Then we see the Friday the 13th marathon, which they're hosting at the abandoned Camp Millwood, which is obviously really, like, cute because it's like Camp Blood, like that kind of vibe. And Tabby and Christian are there, and Johnny and Imogen are running an ice cream truck there, and we see like Mouse and Ash just being adorable, as always. And so like they're all just having fun, and Farron comes over, and she's obviously really upset, and she says, look, I broke up with Henry, and that church is a cult. I'm telling you, that church is a cult. And they're all like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. Like, if Noah was here, she would say, this is just what we need, or something. I can't remember what he said. But then they were all like, why isn't Noah here, actually? That's a little bit strange. And they obviously realize this must be when she's doing her test. And so Noah's task is to take off her shoes and walk over all of these like roses and thorns. And Bloody Rose releases a German Shepherd, and which the idea that Noah, like, I know she's on the like track team, but the idea that she could outrun a German Shepherd is wild. I have a German Shepherd and that is nuts. And so she's being chased by this like dog, and obviously it's like basically destroying her feet. And the dog chases her until she like falls down this hill, and she runs out into the road where Jen drives up and saves her, and they drive away as Bloody Rose kind of watches. And this was an interesting one because it didn't really feel like a task, like, as such. Like, obviously she had to run over the thorns, and I guess escaping the dog was the task, but it felt like completely different in my eyes to like the mouse one and the Farron one. Like, Farron's one was like a proper, like, this is the end goal, whereas like this one, not so much. I thought this one was kind of interesting, but that was kind of the closing shot of that episode, was Bloody Rose and this dog. So now we're going to move on to my kind of theories and just things I picked up on in the episode. So firstly, I think there is more to this Dr. Sullivan book. I just don't buy it. I am not buying it. I'm not buying what she's selling, because why? Like, you could write a book on adolescent trauma without like recording all the girls' conversations and why these girls like specifically and things. I don't think it's about that at all. I think she's writing a book about A. I think she, like, because she has the files of the liars still, but why? They were patients years ago. Like, we're talking 15 years ago probably that she was their therapist in the PLL, like, universe timeline. We're talking like 15 years. So I feel like by this point she probably should have gotten rid of those records. Like, you know, I don't know how it works in the therapy world, but when I worked in the retail world, we kept card receipts for 3 years, and then, you know, we had to destroy them. And I think like in schools and stuff, they keep your information for 2 years and then they destroy it and whatever. So her holding on to these files for 15 years is pretty wild. I mean, obviously Mona did like threaten her son, so she has a more personal connection to these patients than she does anyone else, but I did think that was interesting.
Also, I feel like Aria is not a super common name, so if I was Imogen, I would have been like, she just happened to have a file like called Aria when I was going to adopt from an Aria in Rosewood, and Dr. Sullivan used to work in Rosewood. I don't know. I just feel like maybe she would have, like, she should have clocked onto that, maybe? Or at least been like, that's weird. Because she'd spoken to Dr. Sullivan about Aria and Ezra as well in her sessions, so... And if Dr. Sullivan's writing a book about the liars and the, like, new liars and the OG liars, that's a crazy connection for them to have as well, that Aria almost adopted Imogen's baby. So yeah, I wonder if Imogen's going to think back to that and like bring it up at some point, or if she's just like, we're expected to believe she didn't make that connection. Because I feel like, yeah, it's not that common of a name.
And I'm also wondering if when she mentioned patients that she still sees over Zoom, if some of the liars are those patients, because obviously they live in Rosewood. Well, at least we know that Aria and Emily live in Rosewood, at the very least. So, you know, and then I think maybe Hannah and Caleb, like, maybe they live in New York or something, like for a fashion thing, and who knows where Toby and Spencer ended up. But they live a little bit out of the way. They probably wouldn't travel in to Millwood to see Dr. Sullivan. So I think maybe these remote patients, one of them could be them. Like maybe we could see a little Lucy Hale cameo, like as she's on Zoom or something. I don't know. Here's why I think this, because there has been absolutely zero mention of the fact that she has now worked with 2 groups of teenage girls that have been harassed by A. If I had a dime, or no, a nickel, I don't know, American things. If I had a £2 coin for every time that this happened to me, I would only have 2, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? That's Dr. Sullivan right now. And I think the reason they haven't addressed that yet is because that's what her book is about. I think, you know, I think it has to tie in somewhere, and it's this book. And the reason that she didn't want to ask their permission was because, one, they'd probably say no, but also because then she'd have to reveal what it's truly about if they wanted to then like read it. And, You know, she said to Imogen that she heard about their case and offered her services through Deputy Maroon. So I think she saw teenage girls harassed by A, and she was like, oh my God, it's happening again in the same state, but just in a city, like a town over from Rosewood. This is so interesting. And I think that's what intrigued her to talk to them. And, you know, she kind of sought them out. And so I think we could get a scene probably between her and Imogen, since they seem to have like some kind of bond going, where she'll say that she wasn't totally honest about what her book was about, and, you know, the premise of her book. And she'll tell her about the OG liars and how she, you know, when she heard that A was back, she had to find out more about it. I don't think it's going to be a huge thing. Like, I don't think it's going to lead to like a huge investigation, but I think maybe it will lead to the liars being like, oh my God, there was another group, like that's crazy, and maybe Googling them and like seeing pictures of them or whatever, and something like along those lines. But yeah, I feel like Dr. Sullivan's book is about A and about the OG liars and the new liars combined, rather than just being a book on adolescent trauma. Next, I think Henry's going to die, bless him. I think he's going to die as a result of this cult, this church, and maybe like through trying to protect Farron or kind of prove his love for her. I think he's going to bite the dust. Next up, how did Jen know where Noah was? Because that road was pretty abandoned. Like it said, the track that she was on, like the trail, shuts at night, so no one should be driving around there, unless it just happened to be on the way to Camp Millwood, like if she was going to go and watch the movie marathon. But she's not like friends with any of the others, so why would she do that? I just think it was interesting that Jen knew exactly where she was, and just happened to be the person that drove past and found her. I'm a bit like side eye. Also, she just magically got that $2,000. Like, she was stealing a 20 out of the cash register 3 days ago, but now she has $2,000. So I think maybe she got the money in exchange for doing something to do with Bloody Rose or the church, because she said the roses were there when she got there and she brought them inside but didn't read the letter. Maybe Bloody Rose, like not as Bloody Rose, I guess, or whatever, offered her money to deliver these flowers to Noah, and kind of maybe, I don't know, like told her where it was going to be or something. I don't know. I just feel like it's not a coincidence that she drove past at that exact time. Like, maybe she was angry at Noah, and so she kind of like set this whole thing up, or not set it up, but like was willing to take the money to kind of be part of it. But then regretted it and decided to try and like come and find her. This isn't a theory, but where the hell is Principal Clanton? We know that Archie's on death row, but absolutely no word of what happened to him, which I think is interesting. Like, they didn't even just put in like, oh, and him too. Like, I don't know if they had separate trials or whatever, but they've literally only talked about Archie. And yes, he was the one doing the killing, so he's probably the one to fear more, but Principal Clanton was still pretty dodgy business, so I think maybe he'll show up again this season, because, yeah, I feel like why haven't they spoken about him yet? Next, I think that Wes is a red herring. I don't think he's evil. I think he's just an asshole, to be honest with you. Like, we kind of seem to have glossed over the fact that he had a thing for Tabby in season 1 and tried to make a move on her and was like rejected by her and was just kind of weird in season 1. So now I think her getting closer to Christian and like asking him for help with her films and stuff instead of Wes, because we know that he's also into making horror films, I think it just makes him jealous. And the fact that he was also rejected from Pift when obviously now Tabby has gotten a call back from them and he hasn't, I think he's just like jealous of her and envious of her and just kind of taking it out, like the fact that she rejected him and that she's kind of doing better than him at only like 16. I think it's more to do with that than him being evil. I also think maybe he's the one that's making the movies on Spooky Spaghetti that we've been seeing in the beginning, because when she like challenged him to the movie off, he said no, and I wonder if that's because he is making these films that we're like, the movies that are on Spooky Spaghetti. Now, this one's a little wild, okay, guys? This one's a little out there, but follow with me, okay? What if Rebecca is Angela? Now, it's so classic PLL for someone to die and not really be dead. So they might not want to go down that route with this show. But I do think she kind of looks like what Angela would look like when she grew up, personally. And she just felt like she had a weird vibe about her with Imogen. And I think maybe she's come back and she basically wants Davy's life. Because Davy was the ultimate mean girl to Angela and kind of took everything from her, like ruined her life. So I think maybe if she survived, then she, you know, ran away to like escape her mother and the girls that bullied her. So now she's come back realizing that Davy has died and is trying to get closer to like Imogen and almost like in a way steal the life that Davy got that she wanted, if that makes sense. Like she was like, Davy was so horrible to me, and yet she had this husband and this kid and like this whole life. And now that she's gone, like that could be me now. I don't know. Like, I haven't thought it all the way through, but that's my kind of like gist at the minute. And like maybe it'll be revealed when she like visits Archie in prison or something. And like we'll see him and it'll be like, oh, someone's come to visit you, and then she'll sit down, like Rebecca will sit down and be like, hello, brother, or some shit like that. I don't know. She's not like Hulk Hogan, but yeah. And then maybe she'll like try and devise a plan to like get him out or like save him, obviously, because he's gonna be killed. So that's interesting, because that would again be like kind of a Scream vibe, right? Because the Scream vibe, I think, Scream 2, obviously, because we're in season 2, fits like Mrs. Langsbury and a partner. Do you know what I mean? Because we had Billy Loomis's mum and Mickey from like the college. They were our two killers then. So I think Mrs. Langsbury avenging the death of Chip, and people have said like maybe Christian or Wes or someone like that. I hope it's not Christian. If it's Wes, that's fine. But if it's Wes and Mrs. Langsbury, that's fine. If it's Mrs. Langsbury and Christian, absolutely fucking not. But yeah, so people have been making that like kind of correlation, which I do see. But I think maybe instead of it being like Chip's mum, it could be like Angela, like the sister, more along the lines of like Scream 6, and him, like the brother and sister avenging Richie's death, like more that kind of vibe, or like, you know, Scream 3 kind of like with the sibling that didn't get the life that they wanted, like that kind of vibe. I'm feeling more that. So yeah, maybe Rebecca is Angela. I'm kind of into it. I think it would be kind of crazy. Now, last but not least, okay, this is my theory that I'm so excited about. And I literally came up with it before even watching this episode. Well, not came up with it, because I'd kind of been thinking this for a while. And I wrote this down before I'd even seen the episode, and I wanted to share it with you guys so badly. I've been waiting for this episode. Now, in season 1, I was convinced that Karen was actually Kelly. Okay, I was convinced. Then nothing came of it. And so before season 2 had even come out, I said in my season 2 predictions, I think maybe Karen is still alive. And I think in season 1, they didn't pull the trigger on it to make it more shocking for season 2. Okay. Then I thought to myself, like, you know, Bloody Rose has this whole thing where she kind of like drags her foot, right? Well, who's injured? Nobody, aside from Dr. Sullivan, but I think that's a red herring. I don't think she's involved in the whole Bloody Rose business. So, like, why would Martha do that? Like Mrs. Beasley, because she was my, like, top suspect, but why would she do that? Why would she just drag her foot for no reason? Like, the woman can walk just fine. So I was like, who else would be injured? You know who would be injured? Somebody that fell off of a stage from a great height and hit the floor. Bang. You know who that happened to? Karen Beasley, right? So, I think Karen survived her fall, okay? She fell and she was injured and maybe even a little bit messed up. Like, I don't know, something's gone on. And So she didn't want to come back, okay? Because she was like Queen Bee, do you know what I mean? Like, she doesn't want to come back, like, with a dodgy leg. She's very superficial like that, we know that. And so I think she survived the fall, but she did get, like, permanently injured. And so that is why Bloody Rose has this limp, because she is Karen, still suffering from the injury she got from being pushed by Archie, right? And obviously, if she'd been pushed, the only way for her to assure that she wasn't going to be targeted again was to be dead. Like, Archie's not going to come after her if he thinks she's dead. Like, in the first season, as soon as Principal Clanton thought that Kelly might actually be Karen, he immediately went after her. So if Karen had survived this, she would not have lasted much longer because Archie would have gone to finish the job. So instead, she goes in to hiding to, you know, survive. And so I think Karen's alive, and she's not helping Bloody Rose. She is Bloody Rose, right? Because the girls tried to summon Bloody Rose in the first episode. First episode. They tried to, like, summon her, you know, like, say the name 3 times, like, summon her like a ghost. And I'm sorry that I keep looking down, but, like, I literally wrote this, like, and I want to get it right. So yeah, they summoned Bloody Rose like a ghost, and even Mouse questioned if she was a ghost, right? Like, she was like, oh my god, she's back. What if our ritual worked and we actually summoned her ghost? But if they saw Karen alive again, it would be like seeing a ghost because they think she's dead. Like, what if that's foreshadowing? What if the whole summoning the ghost and like that is summoning someone from the dead, but she wasn't actually dead? But to them, they'd be like, oh my god, how are you alive? Like, it's like seeing a ghost, right? I feel like I sound like such a crazy person. Like, I'm like rambling, but I hope you understand like what's happening in my brain right now. Like, I am that meme of Charlie Day right now, up in here. And so I think I'm still Martha. I'm still there. Don't worry. I haven't left the Martha train. I'm still on it. I've just added a carriage. So I think Martha is, you know, still in her cleanse the town and all that. So that's like one half of the motive, right? Because it seemed like Karen was the favorite of both Tom and Martha, and Martha still has like a picture of Karen and things like that, and I think she was more the favorite than Kelly. So I think they had a closer relationship, and therefore Karen is willing to do the killing as like directed kind of by Martha in some instances. Like, I think Sabrina and Nick in the beginning, and also Sandy, because they were kind of like promiscuous, they were like Martha kills, but obviously Karen did them, but they were instructed by Martha in that kind of like cleanse the town vibe. Then I think Karen's half of the motive is the liars. I think she's the one that's testing the liars, because I was so sure about my Martha theory. The only thing I couldn't click into place was why Martha would go after the liars. And I was like, maybe it's to like avenge Karen's death, but I think it makes more sense that Karen is avenging her own death, right? For what they did to her with playing the video. And, you know, even though she was being the bully, she probably blames her death on Imogen because Imogen ran for Spirit Queen. If Imogen hadn't ran for Spirit Queen, then Karen wouldn't have gone up there to prank her, and she wouldn't have been pushed. Also, we know that it, like, Archie came after the girls because of their mums and came after like all that stuff. So Karen kind of got wrapped into this whole thing because of the liars and because of their mums. So like, it would kind of be, you know, Karen kind of got like caught in the crossfire because of them, right? So she's now come back to just kind of like test them all and like pick them off, like, and see who survives. So Karen is going after the liars. Martha is part of the whole cleanse the town thing, but Karen is also doing that side of it as well. Like I said, I was so sure on the Martha cleansing the town theory, and I still am, but I think the bit I could never explain was her knowing about Bloody Rose and knowing about Spooky Spaghetti. Like, that doesn't really add up to Martha's age. No shade. So there's like probably a younger person, and I just don't want to believe that it's Johnny or Christian, or like maybe it could be Jen, but I don't think Jen's in it maliciously. I think it's probably a money thing. So I think we needed someone younger. And I think Karen, if Karen has been in hiding this whole time, and what did I say? What did I say? Okay? In that bedroom, there are 2 beds. In Kelly and Karen's bedroom, there are still 2 beds there. So I think Martha knows at some point that Karen is going to come back. And maybe it's after all the lies have been tested and won't mess with her anymore, right? Like that kind of thing. And the town has been like cleansed, and Martha feels like she can come back to this nice like new town that they've kind of indoctrinated, you know, with like Kelly and Henry and Greg, and they're kind of like pulling a lot of them in, right? So, and then they'll kind of live as this happy family, like Kelly, Karen, and Martha and Pastor Malachi. Like they'll kind of be, you know, the family of Millwood. So yeah, the whole like spooky spaghetti thing didn't add up with Martha. And also I just can't picture Martha under there. Like it just doesn't click. Like the motive for me worked, cleanse the town, but actually picturing her under there like doing the murders just doesn't really click. But when I thought about Karen under there, like Mallory, the actress that you are, when I thought about her under there, it clicked. And I was like, yeah, like this would be insane. It would be so good. It would be so like, oh, it would just be so good. It would be so good. I so hope that I'm right. And if she's been in hiding for like the past 9-10 months, however long it's been since her death, what would she be able to do? Fuck all. Like, so one thing she could do is go on the internet and, you know, be on Spooky Spaghetti and maybe become addicted to Spooky Spaghetti like Mouse did. And then with this whole Bloody Rose thing, she's taken on this persona and she's gotten this following. And obviously back in high school, like when she was still alive, Karen was the queen bee. Like she was that Allison type, Regina George. Like she had the whole school like under her fist. Like she was top dog. And so she obviously has that queen bee mentality, likes the idea of the following and all that stuff. So this Bloody Rose thing is a way for her to feel that and get that again. Like have these people like literally like cutting their foreheads and like worshipping her. She's probably eating that shit up. Do you know what I mean? Like as Bloody Rose. So, and then also what would work is that she could kind of move around the town undetected, because if anyone just saw her out and about, they would assume she was Karen, like just as like a passerby. Do you know what I mean? So she can kind of move around undetected and think nothing of it. Now, oh my God, it would be so good. Imagine if we have an Alex Spencer or like Courtney Alley situation where when the reveal happens of Karen, we get like flashbacks to other scenes where it was actually Karen and not Kelly that people were talking to. And like, because no one ever thought anything of it, they didn't say to Kelly like, oh, do you remember that conversation we had? And she would go, no. Do you know what I mean? Because now, once I started thinking about this, started clicking into place. That scene with Greg and Kelly in the car felt a little bit weird. I said at the time, I was like, it was a shame that she felt like pressured to be like, oh, there's other stuff we can do and, you know, whatever. But what if she wasn't pressured? Like Kelly has been pretty much very like set in this the whole time, aside from when she was going to rebel at like the pool and stuff. But that scene in the car, the tone felt different. And I wonder if it's because it was Karen in the car with Greg and not Kelly. Like he had been planning to meet up with Sandy and rehearse anyway. So maybe Kelly just thought that he was there doing that. And then Karen went in her place and was kind of like, you know, messing around with him. I don't know why, to maybe like keep him happy so they could keep him in the church, or I don't know, because he's only in the church because of Kelly. But wouldn't that be crazy if they then went back and showed that scene and it was actually Karen, and then there was another scene and it was actually Karen, not Kelly, that they'd spoken to? Like, it would be, I'm cooking, okay? And then, because I just can't help myself, so I was like trying to picture the scene, right? Okay, picture this with me. Tell me this is not good shit. So imagine she like takes off the bloody rose like mask and whatever, and Imogen's like, Kelly? Like, what the fuck? And then Karen goes like, oh, Imogen, like you could never tell us apart. It's me, Karen. Because we had that. That'd be such a callback to season 1 where she went up to Kelly at the dance and was like, Karen, and Kelly was like, no, it's Kelly, it's not Karen. But this time it is. It is Karen. It's not Kelly. It is Karen. And then when they're all like, they're gagged. They're all like shocked. She goes, you look like you've seen a ghost. Tell me that is not 10 out of 10 shit right there. Tell me that is not 10 out of 10. I've done it. I've written the end of the show. That's my headcanon. 10 out of 10. Other like little kind of things that I then like went back and like found and like looked at the end of episode 2, the voice on the Bloody Rose phone call, I think sounds like it maybe could be Mallory with like a little like voice change. Maybe that could be her, which is the actress that plays like Kelly and Karen. Also in episode 4, the person on the phone, when Karen was like talking, referred to Farron as weak, scarred Farron. And obviously we know that Karen and Kelly made fun of Farron for her scoliosis and her back scar, which obviously made her really insecure, and she would like always cover it during performances and things. And I feel like scarred was an interesting like use, because only really Archie and that like knew that she was kind of ashamed of it. Like she then obviously exposed her mum by putting that stuff up in the like at the start of the play, like where she'd like written about her mum lying to her. But otherwise I feel like that was an interesting thing to bring up, but it feels relevant if Bloody Rose is Karen. Then like that ending clip of Bloody Rose with the dog, I'm so convinced it's Mallory under there. Like I see it. I see the vision. And if it is, I'm going to be so gassed, because I literally called this from season 1 and before season 2 like even started. I do think maybe, like I said, I think maybe Kelly will be the next to be tested, or maybe no one will be tested in the Redemption House episode. I don't know. But I think maybe Kelly could be tested because she technically is a final girl. I feel like people forget that. They don't include her, but she is technically a final girl. She was there during the finale, and she's befriending the girls that Karen hated and is kind of trying to pick off one by one, and she's also dating her ex-boyfriend. So I feel like, and she's starting to like stray with her beliefs and stuff, so I feel like maybe Kelly could get tested next. If not, then I think it will be Imogen and then Tabby in the series finale. If this is the case, and Karen is Bloody Rose, I hope she doesn't die. Because if it's inspired by Scream, Ghostface always dies at the end. But I hope that Karen just gets like arrested, so then next season the girls could like go and visit her. And it would be so interesting to see like with Kelly how her character would change now that her like sister was back in the picture, because she was kind of mean because Karen was mean, and once Karen was gone, we started to see more of Kelly's personality and her like more sweet side. And I think it would be interesting to see if Karen came back, the kind of influence that would have over Kelly. So that is it. That is my recap of season 5. I hope I'm doing a recap of season 5. I want there to be many, many seasons. But that is my recap of episode 5. Let me know in the comments what you think. Obviously, it's tomorrow, the new episode, so we don't have long to chat about this, unfortunately. But yes, let me know in the comments what you think of my theories. Tell me your own theories. And I will see you in my next video, which hopefully should only be like 2 days from now, when I'm reviewing episode 6. And all of the cast have really been hyping up this episode and how it's like their favorite episode of the series. So I'm super excited to see it. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.